Okay, this is the opening situation, turn one, Japanese turn, just completed really, of black cats, white tigers again. Nice weather today, so perfect start for the campaign. You can already see that units have all moved around, so the artillery which began the game over here has moved down to reinforce the blocking force at the back. Supply has obviously gone up and down this road. The HQ has moved up. You can see there was 5 supply in here. We spent 4 of it fueling, or 1 SP, 4T, fueling the trucks for the artillery. The mules carried off a further 2, so they've both gone down this track. Probably over the top that. I think that's a reaction to the fact of how difficult it was starting to look when the weather was bad. But hopefully we've got plenty of supply anyway. It's the Japanese in this aren't really spending supply for attack or anything. They only use the supply really to feed themselves, or that's how we kind of think it'll go. Reinforcing unit from Kalewa coming down the road here, and of course the other prong, which is raced to block the road, and for its pains the RAF shot them up a little bit. So that's the end of the Japanese turn, and we're on to the Commonwealth. Okay, so this is the Allied response, or the Commonwealth response to that Japanese first turn. You can see reinforcements have started to come in from off the map. So Heng Tam, there's a new unit moved into there. This artillery unit has just again barreled down the road, possibly put a barrage into here. The machine gun unit has moved across to get spotting on that. New cavalry unit again sort of moved down as fast as it could to get in contact. Interesting how tied to the roads armoured units are in this, and truck-borne units, and how restrictive the movement is. It is a very different game, and it is very much tied to transportation routes, I guess. We've thrown an armoured unit down here more as a block than anything else, because it would be quartered, I think it is, into the mountains. So it's not going to contribute anything really in terms of strength, but obviously it puts Zocs into places where we want to put Zocs to further hinder the Japanese. You can see I took off the DGs during the cleanup phase for the Japanese. We also flew a barrage mission, a pretty strong barrage mission, only 2 planes, but it was up to the 25. No flak hits, but unfortunately we only rolled a 6, which wasn't good enough for a DG. So at the moment they are still in a pristine state. Obviously we've got artillery here, which good idea to fire anyway, because we can burn some supply, and we've got lots of supply to kind of get rid of. And in terms of movement, I guess it's almost just been the Tidham Road shuffle. Essentially everything's just moved along one square, but that gives us the advantage of having this unit out into across the river to get its combat strength in. So essentially we've got 7 there against the 2 or 1, depending on what happens with the barrage, and then obviously we'll have the other unit there halved. So we're kind of ready to do an attack into this hex. Yeah, and then we'll see where we kind of get to after that. So the barrage, first of all, be 24, costing 3T from the 17th Indians dedicated artillery. Once again, it's down because of density, which there's 2 battalions. Sorry, but we're striking this hex. There's 2 battalions in there, so that's 1 regimental equivalent. That means it gets a shift to the left, and the terrain is extremely close. So there's another 2. Actually, I'm saying it's extremely close. Now there is a rule in Burma for it drops it to a very close. I'm going to play it as if it's very close. I'm going to take it down 2. Now, I'm not quite sure that's correct, or whether that is a combat thing as opposed to a barrage thing, but we can look at that later. But we'll take it as it is at the moment. So, oh, that's a 9, so that's quite a good roll. So 24 down 2 with a 9 is a DG, and in fact, even if it went down again, a 9 would still give us a DG. So regardless, we can safely put a DG back in place on that unit, which is exactly what the Commonwealth needed. And what do we got under there? Yeah, that's only a trail, so that wouldn't get that bonus. But I think we'll do it anyway. We'll fire off that 9T, the 9 barrage artillery unit. Sadly, again, it's going to be down to 3, 1 to 3. It's only going to be on the 2, so we need a 10 or more to make that an effective. Yeah, and we only got a 7. So that barrage there fails, unfortunately. Any other barrage we want to do? No, that's the end of the Commonwealth barrage phase. So I'm going to move into the combat segment. And as I said before, what we'll have is we'll have 6 plus 3, because it's halved across the river into the mountain, and 1. So we've got a 10 to 1 attack, which isn't too shabby, I suppose. And once again, that thing will come into play where the terrain is actually very close rather than extremely close, because there is a road in that particular hex. So 10 to 1 in the very close is actually a 9 to 1 in the very close. First thing we need to roll for is surprise. We have a +1 AR because the Japanese are DG'd. We will use, which unit should be the action rating unit? Probably the unit I least want to, I can most readily afford to lose, sorry, is the 7th Cav. So we'll use the 7th Cav as the action rated unit. But it's still a 4, so we still have +1 on the dice. Here we go for the surprise. Okay, it's only a 7 again. 7 plus 1 gives us 8. 8 means no surprise. So we're staying on the 9 to 1. Very close. Wow, that's a nightmare. We just rolled a 4. 9 to 1 with a 4. 9 to 1 with a 4 is an AL1, DO1. Sorry, it's a +1. A 5 is exactly the same result, so it makes no difference. So attacker has to take his option first, and obviously it isn't an option, it's an AL1, so that unit is gone. He's out of there. And with regard to the Japanese, I think the Japanese would do that. I think we would burn 1 battalion to fulfill our option. But actually it gives us that we've still got a battalion in place and we're still holding that position. Because that again, with its, at the moment it's in movement mode, so we can trace sort of through this way with the Commonwealth, but once that flips to combat mode, it'll have a ZOC, and it means it will control those hexes there. It's a bit like this unit here, obviously. Intention with this and with a follow-up will be that they will simply march into a mountain hex, flip to combat mode, and therefore have a ZOC controlling these, which will break this road here. And obviously we can kind of keep doing that. The other rule to bear in mind is that the Japanese units, if they don't move, can create a hedgehog, a level 1 hedgehog. So again, they're probably going to do that, and they're just going to tough it out. They're just going to break the Commonwealth's trace supply and hang tough in the jungle, in the mountains, and wait for those units to wait for those Commonwealth units to die by attrition, basically. Very different from other OCS titles, but interesting all the same. Okay, that's the end of the combat. Yeah, moving on. Okay, this is the end of Japanese turn 2. Things to report. The rain came back. Only light rain, so no change to ground conditions, no change to air operations. It's all still good at the moment. You can see there's 2 reserve markers. Again, that's just grabbing that extra hex by using a reserve mode unit, or putting a unit in reserve mode, moving it forward. It's within its quarter allowed movement allowance, and then obviously releasing it in the exploitation phase. We're just again trying to overlap the Commonwealth units where we can. Similarly down here, the unit that was DG'd is moved 1 hex and gone to combat mode to allow it to use its full combat strength. We have our first hedgehog in here. That's the first combat unit taking advantage of that Japanese ability to flip into hedgehog by not moving at all. Can't pick those up 2 at a time. Let's do that with my fingers. Obviously had that double unit in here the last time. Had both of those battalions survived, probably one of them would have stayed in place, gone to hedgehog, and the next one would have moved along. But unfortunately, it was a reasonably successful combat for the Commonwealth. But you can see, again, Japanese are doing the same. We're following up along here, and we're trying to bypass along here. This unit has moved up into the mountain again. If he survives 1 turn, he'll be in hedgehog next turn. So he's also cutting the road here. So creating a nuisance straight away. He needs to be dealt with, but whether there's enough Commonwealth force there to deal with him is another question. I guess this unit here can probably react. The unit where you can't quite see, but there's an infantry battalion just off this edge. You could bring in and come into where the artillery is. So we have got units to attack. It's just, again, the Japanese are forcing the pace. The other thing with that is, by stripping units away, we're allowing these other Japanese units, so there's a unit in here, there's units here, and there's these 2 which will be released and move through, to come through and do that infiltration again. So it's a shifting position as we speak, and obviously for every turn that these guys don't have a road, they are burning their supply, which is the aim of the Japanese again. Okay, Commonwealth turn 2. Just again a quick update to show what we've got going on. Things are so tight in terms of units for the Commonwealth that we've taken the risk here, a calculated risk I hope, of using strategic movement to bring a unit into Heng Tam. As you can see, the Japanese are pretty close. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, they're kind of closing on what is essentially the end of the road for these poor guys along here. Now there is no link obviously here, there is no road here, there's no ZOC here, there's a Japanese ZOC into it, so there's no link. These guys are still having to subsist on their own. So what we've done this turn, again looking and realising that the Japanese had nobody over this side of the map to take advantage of a reaction move, we've left the dump empty. The units have pulled back. The mules here have worked overtime, so what we've effectively done is drop the 1 SP that they were carrying. They've then shuttled down the road, picked up an SP, brought it back, dropped it again. So because we've been eating from here all the time and firing, etc., where we had 5 at the very beginning, you can see we're now down to 1 T and 1 SP. Now, this being the end of our turn, we're about to do supply, and there's another, probably everything that's in there will go to feed these units. So that will probably just disappear as a hex, and it leaves us with the 2 SP we have in here. But obviously we're going to have to put in an attack here. I'm guessing, well, we may leave the artillery. We may rely on the Air Force again to hit these units, or maybe the Air Force 1, or a combination of Air Force and artillery, obviously, to hit the various Japanese units around us. But you can see that we physically are struggling to regain anything here. This is kind of getting very dodgy in terms of if you roll an AO1, AL1, you're just going to lose a unit, but we're going to lose the units anyway if we're not careful. Bear in mind again the victory conditions for this. If it's 3 lost Commonwealth units, it's a draw. 4 is a Japanese win. So yeah, there's a lot to do, and not a lot of units. And again, you can see even just over here in this little part, you know, we've now got 2 Japanese units across the river. We've got more Japanese units coming, which will possibly go even higher up. We just don't have the strength to do too much. In fact, this was kind of touch and go. I've brought down the there's a 6 infantry strength infantry battalion under here to hopefully have a go at this. But again, looking at it, I'm kind of thinking could go either way. Yeah, what to do for the best. Anyway, desperate times for the Commonwealth. Okay, so interesting, you'll notice now we have a hole has appeared on the main road. We brought in 2 sets of air barrage striking here and here, both completely unsuccessful, no loss but no damage. We then realised that this artillery unit actually has a range of 2, so this unit became the target, and we managed to roll 3 6s, 2 6s for the hit, and then a 6 to take away the to force the loss. So it was actually suddenly a gap appeared, and I was thinking how bright things were. The Commonwealth was going to get this this opening and extricate itself, and we went on to the combat. The combat, as you can see, is 6 to 1, no roll or no AR advantage. We rolled no surprise, so it was a 6 to 1, which becomes a 4 to 1 in the extremely close, it being mountain area. And very sadly, I think our roll was a 7, which gave us an attacker loss 1, option 1, and a DO 1. And about the only thing I can think to do with that is this was my action rating unit. I didn't want to lose the unit on the outside, if you like. Sorry, I'm just falling over a chair. And I must admit, at first glance, I was thinking, well, I think that's 2 units out. But obviously this Japanese unit doesn't have a zone of control into here. So I'm thinking, even though strictly speaking you would go, that's not a retreat. In the broad scheme of things it is. I'm sure those guys know which way they are heading to escape. So I think that's what they would do. I think they would retreat to that hex. It doesn't look so good for the poor chaps who are about to be bottled up into here, but it is what the Japanese have been working towards. And that's that now gives us 2 Commonwealth casualties. 1 more and we're on draw. Yeah, I think it is slipping away from the Commonwealth. I think the pressure is just beginning to tell more and more.